Welcome to C 1250 to 1500, Medicine in Medieval England. Picture this, it's 1350. There's no microscopes, no germ theory, absolutely zero idea of what bacteria even is. So how on earth do you explain getting sick? Let's find out.
Here is our agenda for this explainer. 1. Causes of medieval disease. 2. Prevention and treatment approaches. 3. Who provided medical care. 4. A case study on the Black Death. And 5. Summary and exam practice. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, Causes of Medieval Disease, looking at both supernatural and rational explanations. Okay, let's dive into this. When it came to figuring out why people actually got sick, medieval society basically leaned on two massive families of explanation. And religion, well, that was the absolute foundation of everything. The single most widespread belief at the time was that disease was literally a punishment from God. If you fell ill, the logic was that either you personally or maybe humanity as a whole had sinned and you are now facing divine wrath. But alongside that divine punishment, they had other deeply rooted supernatural beliefs too. The most notable one, astrology. They honestly believed that the exact alignment and position of the stars and planets directly dictated human health and fortune. It's like a giant cosmic puzzle to them. Oh, and if an illness was totally unexplained, sometimes that just got blamed straight on witchcraft. Now, shifting over to the rational side of things, you absolutely must know this inside out for your exams. The core rational explanation was the theory of the Four Humours. This whole idea was inherited from the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates and then systematized by Galen. Galen was a physician whose texts literally dominated European medicine for over 1,000 years. The theory basically stated that your body contained 4 distinct liquids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness, well, that just meant these liquids had somehow fallen out of balance. Here is a totally crucial exam tip for you. Do not treat these as competing ideas. People back then didn't just choose between religion and science like we might today. Medieval people happily believed both at the exact same time. God might send the illness as a punishment, sure, but the Four Humours explained exactly how that punishment actually worked inside your body. It's all about continuity and overlapping beliefs here. Moving right along to Section 2, Prevention and Treatment Approaches, How Beliefs Dictated Cure. Every single medical treatment in medieval England logically stemmed from the exact beliefs we just covered. I mean, think about it. If you genuinely believe that God sent the disease, the only logical treatment is to appeal for divine mercy, right? This meant some seriously intense religious actions. Patients relied heavily on prayer, they undertook grueling pilgrimages to holy shrines, and the authorities got involved too. King Edward III even ordered nationwide public processions to basically beg for God's forgiveness during the plague. And this brilliantly illustrates that incredible blend of supernatural and rational treatments. Look closely at this medieval manuscript. It shows the zodiac man. Physicians used charts exactly like this one to match specific parts of the human body to astrological signs. Why would they do that? Well, so they could consult the stars to decide the absolute safest day and time to carry out a physical treatment, like bloodletting. Speaking of bloodletting, let's look at the rational treatments that were meant to physically rebalance those 4 humours. On the left there, you're looking at a ceramic leech jar. This was used to store live leeches for draining a patient's blood. Physicians would bleed or purge patients just to get rid of whatever humor they thought was in excess. And over on the right, that's an excerpt from Bald's Leech Book, which is one of the earliest English medical texts. That side represents the widespread use of traditional herbal remedies that were just passed down through generations in local communities. Another massive rational belief that completely dictated prevention was miasma theory. Simply put, this was the belief that disease was literally carried by bad air or foul smells. So to prevent illness, people naturally took action to purify the air around them. They'd carry around sweet-smelling herbs or flowers, they'd burn these huge fires in the streets, and they tried desperately to avoid anywhere that smelled foul. All right, Section 3, Who provided medical care? The hierarchy of treatment. Let's talk about who actually treated you. Because back then, the kind of care you received depended entirely on how much money you had in your pocket. There was a very strict hierarchy of care. Right at the top, you had the physicians. These guys were university trained, they spent years studying Hippocrates and Galen, and they were incredibly expensive.
A step down were the apothecaries. Now, they had no formal university training, but they were super knowledgeable about mixing and selling herbal remedies. And finally, the barber surgeons. They were by far the most accessible to ordinary people. They performed your basic surgeries, pulled teeth, and did the actual bloodletting.
Now, if you actually did have the money for a fancy physician, this is likely what your consultation looked like. The physician in this manuscript is practicing uroscopy. This practice was hugely important at the time. The physician would literally match the color, the clarity, and sometimes, brace yourselves, even the smell and taste of a patient's urine against a reference chart. That was his primary text-based diagnostic tool to figure out exactly which humor was out of balance.
But if you needed surgery, you were going straight to the barber surgeon. This illustration here shows a procedure called cauterization. The barber surgeon is actually using a red-hot iron instrument to burn and seal a wound. That stops the bleeding and prevents infection. I mean, it was brutal and obviously incredibly painful without any modern anesthetics, but it was just a highly practical, everyday part of medieval medicine.
Now, what about the poor and the elderly? Well, for them, there was the hospital. Here is the historic entrance to St. Bartholomew's Hospital in London, which was founded way back in 1123. But you have to remember this crucial phrase for your exams. Medieval hospitals provided care, not cure. Run mostly by monks and nuns and funded by the church, they really didn't offer medical treatment as we'd recognize it today. Instead, they offered a warm bed, some decent food, and a whole lot of intensive prayer.
Which brings us to Section 4, Case Study, the Black Death, putting beliefs to the ultimate test between 1348 and 1349. So all of these beliefs and treatments we've talked about were put to a terrifying test when the Black Death hit. This was a devastating plague that killed roughly a third of England's entire population. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it actually maps the panic directly onto their medical theories. Just look at the logical links here. Because they believed in the Four Humours, well, they prescribed bloodletting. Because they believed the plague was God's punishment, priests led massive processions and urged everyone to confess their sins. And because they believed in miasma, ordinary citizens walked around clutching herbs and flowers just trying to block out that bad air. So, the absolutely crucial point here, and guys, this is absolute exam gold, so listen closely. Medieval people were not stupid. They were not irrational. Every single seemingly bizarre treatment they attempted during the Black Death was a highly logical, rational response to the science they genuinely believed in. Sure, it didn't work, but that's just because their foundational science was incorrect. The actions themselves, completely rational based on their understanding of the world. Examiners love when you point that out.
Finally, Section 5, Summary and Exam Practice. The link between belief and action. To summarize this whole era in one breath, medieval disease was explained by God, the stars, and the Four Humours, and then it was treated accordingly by a strict hierarchy of physicians, apothecaries, and barber surgeons. With that in mind, I want to leave you with this practice question right here. Explain one way in which ideas about the cause of disease in medieval England influenced approaches to treatment. Think about how you could trace the logic of the Four Humours straight into an exam answer about bloodletting. Take that challenge on, see where the logic takes you, and keep asking those big questions.